So, just a quick little introduction about what is coaching. So coaching, and these are other people's definitions initially, coaching is the art of facilitating the performance of another. So all we are really is a form of catalyst. We're here to draw it out of other people. Coaching raises awareness, which in and of itself is transformative. And very often that's all you need to do is to help someone to notice the reality of the situation. And some of these feedbacks, if you get 5 people telling you that you're good at something and you didn't really know or you didn't really admit, then that will actually transform the way you see yourself. Coaching empowers individuals to discover their ability and identify how to achieve it. And that's basically the basis of what we focus on in Brevi Group. But it's discovering that potential. You are an agency, and once that's happened, they probably can do the rest themselves. And invisible coaching is coaching in the moment. Just the right word, just the right action, just the right time. And probably nobody even notices. So to answer the question, what is coaching? I've got a story here, which I'll read out because it's not mine, from Milton Erickson. Milton Erickson not only was one of the main and most well-known early psychotherapists in the States, but he was also one of the subjects that the first NLP practitioners studied in order to identify how it was that he could be so successful. And this is what he wrote. I was returning from high school one day, and a runaway horse with a bridle sped past a group of us and into a farmer's yard, looking for something to drink. The horse was perspiring heavily, and the farmer didn't recognize it, so we cornered it. I hopped on the horse's back. Since it had a bridle on, I took hold of the rein and said, "Giddy up," and headed for the highway. I knew the horse would turn in the right direction. I didn't know what the direction was. The horse trotted and galloped along, and now and then he would forget he was on the highway and start into a field. So I'd pull him up a bit and call his attention back to the highway, and that was where he was supposed to be. Finally, after about 4 miles from where we'd boarded the horse, he turned into a farmyard, and the farmer said, "So that's how the creature came back. Where did you find him?" And I said, "About 4 miles from here." "How did you know he should come here?" I said, "I didn't know, the horse knew. All I did was keep his attention on the road." And Erickson concluded to say, "I think that's the way you should do psychotherapy." And I say, I also think that's the way you should do coaching. So the horse knew, the rider didn't, but the rider had the process and kept the focus. So it's very easy for people who are enthusiastic about coaching and who've studied it to assume that coaching is the answer to everything. But coaching isn't the answer to everything. It's part of a process. And particularly, if you're working in an organization, it's really useful to relate coaching to training and to follow the training with the coaching. So if you look at the drawing on the screen, the small print says the bottom left is high direction and low support. And you can see I've summarized that as show and tell. So when you first want somebody to do something, there's no point asking these sort of open questions that I was doing in our first exercise. They actually need some information. So if you're teaching somebody how to operate a machine, if you're teaching someone how to use Excel or Word, you show them and you tell them and you are very specific. Similarly, if the fire alarm were to go off, we wouldn't enter a discussion about the meaning of the noise. We would open the door and I would say, "Follow me." Or somebody else would rush out and I'll follow them. So the first stage of the learning really is quite specific. And it was quite interesting, actually. Some years ago, I did some voluntary work with Marines who were about to be retired. And they couldn't get past that. They wanted to set up a training company. And they set it up and they had all these boats. We went out on the water. And as I took them through the process, they said, oh, well, when you come down to it, it's show and tell. And they had been taught so much, but it meant that they really had become automatons. And the objective we need in life and we need in business and industry is actually empowered people to do things for themselves. So coaching does give direction, but it gives lots and lots of support. So we're moving through now to a partnership. Rather than you do what I say, we work on something together. And as they gain confidence and competence, then we can move into the next quadrant where we continue to support them, but we don't really need to tell them what to do. So we're beginning to empower them to do it, but we're still working with them. And then finally, when they really have mastered whatever it is, we can actually hand over the work. So we tell them what to do, but then we leave them behind. We don't tell them how to do it, and we don't need to support them. Maybe we say, come back when you're finished. So there is a process. And on the face of it, we can see a process that starts show and tell, moves into coach, moves into support, moves into delegate. But in a good world, it becomes a spiral. So when they've mastered that, then we can show and tell them something else, we can coach them something else, and we can support and delegate them. So gradually people are moving up and becoming more competent in larger areas.